Hello and welcome to Quadriga, where our focus this week is on a series of attacks that have left people here in Germany badly shaken. The attacks began with a teenager wielding an axe on a train and ended with a suicide bombing on the terrace of a wine bar. 4 attacks in all. There appears to be no direct link between the incidents, but 3 of the 4 attackers had come to Germany as refugees and 2 professed allegiance to Islamic State. That's left many Germans asking whether the Chancellor was mistaken when a year ago she said, "We can do this," as the country took in hundreds of thousands of refugees. So our question this week on Quadriga is: terror comes to Germany. Is Merkel to blame? And we'll be addressing that with 3 people who have been following the situation very closely. It's a pleasure to welcome Professor Isabella Heuser-Collier. She's the director of the Department of Psychiatry at Berlin's leading research hospital, the Charité. And she says, no, Merkel's not to blame for terror coming to Germany, but she is to blame for not sufficiently and convincingly explaining her solutions. And it's a pleasure to have Alan Posner on the show once again. He's a British-German commentator at the Berlin daily newspaper Die Welt. And he says, who's to blame for Islamic terror? Islamic terrorists and dictators, of course. And finally, with us today is Amir Moussaoui. He's the Berlin bureau chief of the Iraqi TV channel Al Iraqiyya TV. He's the co-author of the documentary film Bureaucracy of Terror, an inside look at Islamic State. And he says, Merkel needs to be more honest about the fact that Germany simply has to learn to live with the danger of international terrorism. So welcome to all 3 of you. Amir Moussaoui, given the proximity in time of these various attacks, it is, of course, tempting to lump them all together as a wave of terrorism, or in the words of our title, terror comes to Germany. But how do you see it? Has the country, in fact, now joined the ranks of your own country, Iraq, Egypt, Turkey, France, Belgium, and the US, to name just a few of the targets of IS terror in this year alone?
Indeed. I think Germany is now a target of the terrorists, especially of the Islamic, so-called Islamic State. When you read what they write in the homepage of what they write, and what we saw from documents, they have a brigade of German brigade inside IS, and also trying to recruiting people, not from European, but also from Middle East, went to Germany through this migrant wave, trying to attack Merkel, because they are really following what's going on in the politics inside Berlin. And they, of course, they would like to see mass chaos in the country. For example, what's happened in France the last time, attacking, it is a quality of attacking in the church. They try to bring people against each other and to using this mass of the people from Middle East, from the refugees.
Although 3 of the 4 attacks did involve people who had come to Germany as refugees, one did not, and in fact that was the deadliest of the attacks, namely by a young man in Munich who actually was propagating hatred against Islam prior to the attack, and apparently had sympathies with right-wing radicals. So if you look at these 4 incidents as a whole, don't the differences between them, the distinctions, actually perhaps outweigh any parallels?
It is by incident what's happened of the reasons of what's happened. But in the end of the analyze, when we look in the country here in Germany, we see a lot of problem, social problem, whether it's an immigrant, inside the immigrant society or outside. We see also, I'm looking for some reasons, some answers about the capability of the security inside Germany, but still we have far away from the experience that they gain when I compare it with Britain. Germany still new about this field, how to facing this international terrorism, and I think it's a lot of work to do.
We will come back to the issue of solutions in just a moment. But let me ask you this, Professor Heuser-Collier. If there's a link between all 4 of these incidents, including the mass shooting in Munich, couldn't we say perhaps it's actually mental illness?
No, I don't think it's mental illness at all, because mental illness has a certain definition which they don't actually meet.
Two of them were treated in psychiatric hospitals.
Well,
One of them, in fact, as an inpatient over a number of months, and had tried to commit suicide for several times. The suicide bomber who, in fact, then succeeded in Ansbach.
Yes, but a lot of people who are committing suicide or threatening suicide or are depressed are not, in that sense, mentally ill, that you could apply the mental illness to their deeds, what they were doing. Not, you know, they are still responsible for their deeds, because they do know, even mentally ill people, there are only a very few, you know, psychotic schizophrenics, maybe, who don't know what they are doing, actually, and who cannot differentiate between good and bad. And we all know that we are not, or that we should not, and this is kill somebody and kill innocent people, kill people at random, just to proclaim or to put some ideological foundation to our beliefs. That is wrong, and even mentally ill people or people who have who got a psychiatric diagnosis do know how to differentiate those between the two.
But Alan Posner, how strong is the element of ideology in the kind of attacks that we saw here? If we take those 3 attacks that were perpetrated by people who had come as refugees, would you say they're really ideologically driven in the classic sense in which we think of it in terrorist incidents?
Well, not in the classic sense, but they are corresponding to a certain tactic which we can see in many advanced societies. For instance, firstly, this self-radicalization via the internet. Secondly, doing your own thing, that is homemade bombs, or as in the case of Nice, driving a truck into a crowd. We know this from Israel, and it's interesting that in Israel, these self-radicalized terrorists have become more a part of daily life, as organized terrorism by Hamas and co. has not been able to penetrate Israeli security. So while on the one hand it might be rather, you might feel rather difficult sitting next to someone, you know, who opens his Quran and starts to read, and you think, has he got a knife on him and so on, which is, you know, what they want, and which is terrible. On the other hand, the very fact that, you know, that these are individuals actually, I think, points to the fact that the German security forces, as far as organised classical terrorism is concerned, are probably doing quite a good job.
I mean, Moussaoui, are we seeing a certain shift in the nature of terrorism itself? As I said, it used to be seen as an ideological act with a target that had some relation to the cause in question. Charlie Hebdo would be a typical example. In France, a newspaper that had published extremely derogatory material about Islam. These days, it seems to be more a gratuitous targeting of civilians who have no connection whatsoever.
This is the point what the Islamic State right now to implementing a new strategy on the ground, because they are losing ground in Fallujah, they're losing in Mosul, they are about to losing the control over the territory they got in control over 2 years. And they still have a concurrent, a Nusra front. And they would like to say, hey, we are losing the ground, but we're still there. And how they are sending people, inspiring people, and this is what's called the minister of IS, I call it, is Abu Muhammad al-Adnani. He called every person sympathizing with IS to begin a self-operation, as he called. And he said, if you are not able to join us, do something in your home. This is a new quality of the attack, of the danger, that the people cannot, the police cannot come inside the mind of these potential attackers and understand what is going on in the next 2 or 3 days. This is really something that we still do not know. It is a dark point. We still have a lot of research about that topic.
The fact is, Germany was long spared compared to many other European countries, but the past couple of weeks have shown that, indeed, Germany is not immune, as Amir Moussaoui told us a moment ago. Isabella Heuser-Collier, what's your impression of how people are coping? The aim of such attacks is clearly to instill fear. Is it there? Are people afraid?
Well, I think it is actually working, yes, in the sense that this IS wants to install fear and chaos by addressing actually not so stable, maybe embittered, maybe, you know, these people who always feel they are the short side of life, by addressing them and asking them to do in the country they are in their self-operations. And that, of course, installs fear, because everything the politicians always tell us is that, you know, the security agencies are working, that we are going to increase cybersecurity and this and that and so forth. But that doesn't seem to be actually helping in getting these individuals who are, these individuals, how are we going to detect them? They are not mentally ill in that sense that they are overtly, you know, that they will draw attention because they are acting crazy. No, they're, you know, sitting there.
Interestingly enough, after the first attack, after the attack by the teenager who was wielding an axe, nearly 2/3 of Germans said in polls that they still felt the government was doing all it can to protect them. The question, of course, is whether that is likely to have changed with the further attacks that followed that one. We asked some people on the street in Berlin how they are feeling after this week of violence.
I'm not doing anything differently now, but it does make me nervous. You feel a bit more suspicious, a bit anxious.
There's always been terrorism. We just hear about it much faster because of social media.
I'll still live the way I want to and take a stand for freedom.
I love liberty and the country we've had since 1945, and I want to defend that.
I feel really sorry for the refugees who have nothing to do with that and just want to fit in and belong and have a better life. So I think it's stupid to be so mistrustful. Though unfortunately, you do get a bit mistrustful.
Actually, fairly calm and optimistic statements there, Alan Posner. Would you say that's reflective of society at large?
Well, it's why I love Berlin, right? I mean, these are Berliners, and it's all about the resilience of a big city, which we've seen in New York after 9/11, which we saw in London after the attacks, which we've seen in Paris. You know, and it's obviously not the same thing, shall we say, in smaller towns or in villages where people are not used to this kind of situation, not used to dealing with foreigners on a daily basis, who don't know, actually, that someone who looks different, prays in a different way, isn't, you know, is in 99.9% of the time not a danger. So, you know, this is why you have to love civilization, big city civilization. But I'm afraid, of course, that there is a groundswell of real anger among people, even in Berlin, you know, who feel that they could be protected more. And quite frankly, I don't understand how someone with an axe can get on board a train in Bavaria. All these big words by Bavarian politicians, and then someone can get on board a train with an axe. He couldn't in Israel, I can tell you that. I don't understand how someone can come to a music festival with a rucksack without it being controlled.
As you know, in that case, he was turned away by an enhanced police presence, but unfortunately then made his way to a wine bar. So
well, okay.
He did not get into the music festival.
Good. Okay, so that's the
factual.
Yeah, well, all the better. You know, so you know, these are small things we can do and have to do, and and I don't understand really how in Munich, again, this is Bavaria, one person can start shooting in McDonald's, and the police says it's 3 people with long guns, when anyone who watched the videos on YouTube, as it happened, could see it was one person with a shotgun, with a pistol. These are things that mustn't happen.
I want to come to the Bavarian politicians in just a moment, but let's take a look at the federal politicians now, because, of course, our title asks whether Merkel is to blame. The Chancellor has been on vacation, and she has just interrupted it now to hold a press conference, speak to the public, fairly unusual. Usually she keeps her vacations pretty holy, Amir Moussaoui. You listened to some of that. In your opening statement, you said she needs to be much clearer about the fact that Germany must learn to live with this risk. Were you satisfied with what you heard from her today?
Not really. Because, first of all, of the timing, in my point of view, from the point of view of the public, she reacted she took a long time to react. I suppose she's supposed to react after 2 days or 1 day after the attacking. This is first. Second, with the program, with the points that she said today, I think some of these points is working already, still existing.
She said that, in fact, didn't she?
Okay, but the new elements, maybe some 3-4 elements come inside about the cyber attack. I think Merkel, as a chancellor, we know her. She left the stage for all, talking everyone, and she will be the last person putting the stamp of her politic. But in this situation, like danger, and people have fear about what's going, my daughter going to the kindergarten and so on, they need an answers. They're looking for someone, a leader, to give them the more feeling of security.
Your statement said something similar, Professor Heuser-Collier. You also said she needs to be much more direct, much clearer with the public. Did you hear the kind of thing you think she needed to be saying in this press conference, or was it too little, too late?
I think it was a little too little. Too late, yes. What I missed was actually that she first validated the fear, or also the upcoming feelings of discontent with the whole situation that Germans seem to be having more and more.
Her initial words did address that. She didn't go far enough for you?
No, she didn't go far enough for me, because you have to be a little bit more emotional. I mean, she's so
not her hallmark, of course.
Uber calm, yeah, but she's a politician at the same time. I think she should have really validated those feelings a bit more, and then she was just, ticking off a laundry list of measures that she claims have been already implemented months ago, and other measures that should be implemented. I don't know when they're going to be implemented, but it was now, just the last week, that all these things happened. So there's something really disconcerting, because these things happened, although she said we have everything is being taken care of. Don't you worry. It's a bit, I think, paternalistic, or I should say maternalistic, because she's a mother.
Interestingly enough, Germany's tabloid newspaper, which is normally not the first to praise the Chancellor, said that they thought it was quite correct of her that she attempted to project an air of calm by remaining on vacation and not creating alarmism. Government officials who took quite a different approach were those from Bavaria. Let's listen to what they had to say this week.
Each attack, each act of terror is one too many. Islamist terrorism has arrived in Germany. People are rightfully expecting that we boldly meet this challenge.
Amir Moussaoui, the state premier of Bavaria, whom we just heard there, said, as we heard, terror has come to Germany. He said it a number of times this week, quite a different approach than the one we heard the Chancellor take this morning with her very restrained caution. Isn't he actually just inciting even more fear with those words?
To be honest, I am sorry for the guy because he's trying to attacking Merkel politic with attack and without any attack. We remember months ago, he tried to bring this fear on the public about the politic of his partner, in fact, his partner in the politic, Ms. Merkel, but he failed. And we talked about Merkel still have ability to manage his statements, to withdraw the carpet under his feet, and in the end, she became as a winner. But in this time, we should prepare for the next election. It will be in 1 year, and I think this kind of statement has to do with prepare the ground of his political ground in the public about the next election. And of course, he's afraid of the alternative of Deutschland, the next right party that could gain more more population in Germany. That's why he's behaving in this way. But I will tell you, he will, in the end, he will not succeed in this critic because Merkel is still able to give an answers. Also, it's late answers, but still there is answers, and the population still trust Merkel.
Alan Posner, the measures that the Bavarians want to see enacted range from stricter monitoring of refugees, quicker deportation of those who have offended, even if it means deportation into active war zones, deployment of military forces here within the country if there is a risk of a terrorist incident. Are any of those actually likely to significantly reduce the risk?
Yes, I think they are. I think all of them are, actually. I think they're all good ideas. And Merkel, actually, in a slightly watered-down version, presented them within her laundry list, especially monitoring conversations, especially monitoring what's going on social media, and so on, something that is anathema to the German left, but which just has to be done. As for the army, she also said that there would be manoeuvres to police and the army together, which is interesting. It was sort of, no one asked about that, but it was basically the main point, actually, the main new point. My personal opinion would be that if we have to use the army, we should use it more in your country and in Syria and so on to fight ISIS at the source and not here. But, you know, I'm sure that in a situation where we have a major terrorist attack, of course we have to use soldiers as well as police, simply to control panic and so on. But as I say, I prefer to see the one thing that Merkel didn't say, and which Seehofer isn't saying because it's very unpopular, is without destroying ISIS, really destroying it, and then without removing Mr. Assad in Syria, we are not going to stop these people coming to Germany.
To be honest, I will not agree with you about that, because destroying an organization with ideology, you need ideology, you need answers. You don't need just bombs and, of course, war, army, of course, it's very important, but you should have a concept. What's going on after IS? This is the big question now in Iraq, because IS began to lose the ground. Everyone asking, what is going on after that? In Syria also, if you take Assad outside, what is the next? This is the question. I think we should answer with bombs, with weapons against them in the battlefield, in Mosul, in Manbij, and Raqqa, in Syria. But in the same time, we should work on the concept after this era.
Of course, many of those who are perpetrating incidents in France as well as here are homegrown terrorists. Professor Heuser-Collier, one of the things the Chancellor didn't mention on her laundry list was greater mental health support. Yet we are told by experts that a large proportion of the population of the refugees who came in last year suffer from serious trauma, need help, and as I said, a couple of the perpetrators here at least had been in psychiatric treatment. What do you think? Should there be greater support for mental health?
Well, there should be great support for mental health, but I do think that Germany has done so much and is still doing. We know that from the Charité, my department itself is doing mental health work in refugees here in Berlin, and not everybody who has been through very dangerous and life-threatening situations really has then becomes mental health patients. I mean, and not everybody who commits suicide or threatens suicide has really a mental health issue. So you have to be really very, very cautious with using these words. And I think it's been done a lot.
Let me ask all of you to very briefly answer the question that we posed in our title. The Chancellor was very clear in her press conference. She's not thinking about changing her open-door policy. Do you think she should? Has it been a mistake? One word. Yes or no? Isabella Heuser-Collier.
I think she needs to improve a bit.
I mean,
no, she's not able because the Constitution, and I think if she would like to change the politic, I think she needs to change the Constitution.
Alan Posner?
Keep the door open, fight terrorists.
Thank you very much to all of you for being with us, and thanks to you all for tuning in. See you soon.